essentially you're right. It seems like today that everybody has a podcast. So when we first started, even till now, I'm not really fixated on the views or like the numbers it gets or any of that. I know that some people might say it's like the amount of numbers you get that like determines the success, but I really don't think it's that. I think it's like even that one person that would watch it or listen to it or follow you, the impact that can have on them might be way more than it could on a large number of people that just listen and then go and do nothing with.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. We're back with another episode of the Student Guide. We've opened another chapter of the Student Guide, and we are diving into another topic. We have brought on an amazing guest speaker. We've brought on an amazing person. And what's interesting enough is, we slowly started to be bringing on more and more podcasters, which is really interesting. We've got another podcast, but not only just any podcast. We've got another Brunel podcast. So, we'll be diving into the world of podcasts at Brunel very shortly. But of course, we start off with the introductions. And as you guys know, I never do the introductions because I will never do the guest speakers justice. So instead, I'm going to hand over to T. T, could you just let us know a bit more about yourself? Maybe, what you're studying at Brunel and maybe a bit about your podcasting journey too.
Perfect. Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is T, and thank you for introducing me, Jeffrey. I'm actually currently studying my master's at Brunel at the moment. I'm studying social work. I also did my undergrad at Brunel doing sociology. So, I'm an alumni and I'm back again. They can't get rid of me. And I currently co-host Let's Talk About It Brunel, which is essentially a podcast based about well-being and mostly focuses on student well-being as much as we can. But we also discuss very sensitive topics that in the past would have considered a bit taboo. But it's mainly a podcast that just is about open conversations, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's the most important thing about conversations or podcasting in general, is it's always being able to have those like open conversations and discussing with people, and it's sort of like you said, like just being yourself and being open and honest. I've listened to a couple of episodes. I definitely would recommend. We mentioned it before when Jay was on the podcast. Again, we're mentioning it here. If you haven't listened to it already, you're missing out. So check out their podcast. We'll include a link in the description below. And for any of our sort of like audio listeners, we'll include a link in the description so you can directly check that out as well. I also realized that I sort of got ahead of myself because the first official question I was going to ask you is literally, what is Let's Talk About It? But you've already sort of introduced it. So I'm going to go on to the question after that, which was essentially, why did you decide to start Let's Talk About It? Because I think, we mentioned it. It won't be the mic check, which is obviously our, fact where we talk about something that's relevant to the episode or an experience. And I know in a previous one, we did mention that, a lot of podcasts that sort of start only get past the first two episodes. And then people, whether it's to do with the amount of work that goes into it, whether it's to do with just a lack of motivation, whether because they don't see a quick and instant sort of turnover, they quit. It was just basically to ask, what inspired yourself, or even just the idea of a podcast? Where did that sort of come from?
It's really funny because I actually hate public speaking. I hate presentations. I hate being in control of a meeting. Talking is just not my thing. It's actually not. But when I started my master's, it was part of an assessment actually for Yohai Haka's module. And it was like you either write a review on a book or you do a review on a movie or a drawing as such, something creative. And one of the options was actually to be part of a podcast episode. So I thought, let me just go with that. I don't know why I was drawn to it. I'll be really honest with you. I think it might have been the topic because it was about parenting from different cultures. So I think that was what inspired me essentially. Not that I'm a mum, but, I have a nephew from two different cultures. So yeah, that's what drew me to it. It was a really interesting episode. It was the first one I'd been a part of. So I went over the top of the research. I was reading everything. I was making points. I think I was a little bit extra with it because I just didn't want to make a mistake. So, and then when the actual podcast took place, it wasn't as intense as I thought it would be. So there was that. So I really enjoyed it. And then following that, a few months later, Yohai Hacker messaged me, and he sent me an email saying that there is an opening to co-host a podcast on well-being by Brunel. And he asked me if I would be interested in taking part. And a funny story about that, if we're going to be all honest, that was actually the day that I was really stressed out with uni work. And I was like this close to having like a breakdown. Not really, but like I was like overwhelmed with emotions. And then I get that and I was like, oh, this is quite funny. It's quite ironic. But yeah, I did reply back to him, and I did say to him, oh, I don't think I have the confidence for that. I'm not really sure about that. And he encouraged me. We had a meeting and he just basically said that I did really well in the previous podcast. So, I should just give it a try and maybe be a bit more confident. And then, yeah, it was because of him. I did like the concept. I like the concept about well-being. I like the concept about it being focused on students. And I like the concept of like having free reign in terms of the topics we discussed. I really am a big advocate as well. And I do vouch for it, especially like post-COVID, but even before COVID. I think when it comes to individuals, in order to like progress in life, your well-being has to be centered and it has to be prioritized. So yeah, I guess it just fell into place. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, I think like there's quite a few things that's really great about that story because one, I think it's like you said, especially when you're sort of like, I think especially as a uni student, you've got like, you had a tough day, loads of assignments, it feels like everything's just coming at you all at once. Getting that nice piece of good news is always great and always appreciated.
Yeah.
But also I think kind of like what you said, like sort of like here's the next question, and we'll go into a bit more detail then. But one of the things you mentioned about like podcasting sort of helping with like public speaking and confidence. I guess that can be our mic check because essentially, we always like when people ask about like how have you found podcasting or like, well, what made you get into podcasting, all of this stuff. Like as a team, like we always say that I don't know. Well, it's funny for two things. One, it's today. I probably should have said this at the start. We're literally recording on our 2nd anniversary of when we released our first episode.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. So especially having like a podcast episode is it's very special, very, very special episode, I guess. But yeah, no, I think for us, like, I guess looking back 2 years, when we released our first episode, we were just like, oh gosh, we didn't like it. Like we were, like you said, like we were recording during the pandemic, so we were recording on Zoom. Like we did it. We were just doing audio at that point. We weren't doing videos. It was literally just like a blank screen, just seeing each other's names. And we just said like, it's funny because we listened to that first episode and we're just like, gosh, we sound like really awkward. There were like those silences. I'm pretty sure like in our first episode, I don't know if I ever fixed it, but like there was a bit where like it was silent for like a good couple of minutes and we didn't know why. And we tried to like fix the audio. And yeah, we just look back now and then we're just like, wow, we've sort of like grown. There are people on the team who like yourself, T, weren't sort of or weren't big fans of public speaking, and they were just like, it was really nice because it sort of gave them the courage to like, I guess, speak in public and sort of help them with that. And I think that's one of the amazing things about podcasting is, I guess, people might say, oh, if you're afraid of public speaking, the best thing to do is like do public speaking, go on stage and do. But podcasting is nice because yes, you can have like live podcasts, but most of the time you're sort of like either recording in a studio, you're recording someone else, and there's no pressure, like immediate pressure. You're not seeing like a crowd of people in front of you. You're not sort of like getting people staring. You're not sort of looking out in the crowd and then seeing someone just like scrolling through their phone or, just seeing the light of their phone, especially if it's like a dark place. Yeah, no, it's a
makes it more intimate.
Yeah. Yeah, and it allows you to sort of like just, relax, feel comfortable with yourself and sort of like stress about it. So yeah, I guess that was my main thing, is that, and I guess linking to the mic check, is it's just like podcasting enables you as an individual to just get that confidence, do that public speaking, and not even just not even just like how we're doing it today, of like a question and answer or an interview, or like there's many different styles of podcasting. And even if you're doing like you're just the sole person talking about like maybe one day I'll do it, but like if you're the sole person talking on a topic for like, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes, and you're making it interesting, you're making it funny, like even that, to be able to have like no one else is in the room with you, you're here just like making jokes.
That's pretty unique, to be
Exactly.
fair.
No, definitely.
I mean, honestly, if you look back at the first episode we recorded, I think I said like one thing. I was so nervous. I think I literally said one thing, maybe two at a push. And I remember like apologizing to Jay and being like, I'm so sorry, I was so nervous. But it gets easier after.
Yeah.
I think when you get more comfortable with it and you take the pressure off yourself, and it's so hard because like, if you just forget there's a camera there, right? It does get easier.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. I think especially like you said, like because I think that's one of the things, like even to this day, like when we bring on guest speakers, they're just like, okay, so should I be looking at you? Should I look at the camera? And it's just like, no, just like, let's just have a conversation. Yeah, just don't worry about the camera, don't stress about it. Just have a conversation. And yeah, like you said, it takes time. It's not something that immediately, like no one's expecting anyone to be great at podcasting or hosting or whatever from the get-go. There will be times when you'll like learn, like myself, like learning what's the best way to do the intros. Is it better to be structured or just sort of go with the flow? And I think, yeah, it's just that about being able to like try new things, and not being afraid to do them. But yeah, that's sort of nicely links. Oh, were you going to say something?
No, I just said I agree.
Oh no! Oh, thank you. But yeah, let's go on to the next question, because we sort of like teased it already. But as we sort of already discussed, you've got a podcast that you've been hosting, and I guess my question to you was going to be about like, how have you found joining the podcast world? Because I mentioned it before that sort of like a lot of people start podcasts, they just don't continue it. But I think even a lot of people starting podcasts itself, there was a event I was at a couple of weeks ago, and someone sort of was joking there that it seems like every celebrity, as soon as they've got a book out, has to have a podcast with their book. They've got like, they'll be doing like, I don't know, like a comedy show. Then they'll have like a podcast based around their comedy show. And it's just like a lot of people, not even just celebrities, but the average person as well. It's just like, actually, you know what? I like talking. I want to talk I've got a microphone. I feel like I want to talk about something for an hour every week, and I'm going to upload it and see how it does. So yeah, I was basically just asking you, like, how have you found joining the podcasting world?
I remember when I first started, I'm acting like this was ages ago. It hasn't even been a year yet. But at the very beginning, we were designated roles in terms of like social media and like how we're going to contact people. And I remember Yohai actually saying, you can promote the podcast. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? I was like, how do I do that? He's like, social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. I was like, Yohai, I don't have any of that. He's like, do you have Facebook? I said, no. He was like, do you have, what was it? Do you have LinkedIn? I said, no. He was like, do you have this? Do you have that? I was like, no. He was like, oh my God, Tadini, you get with the times. He was like, you're going to have to like get with it. And even like a few weeks ago, he did even say to me, it's like, you should try promote it more. And I'm like, I am, but like, you're learning. Like I made a whole new Instagram for the podcast and a whole new email address. But at the same time, it's not easy. It is a learning curve. You see, like you said, you see what works for you, what doesn't. I get inspired by other podcasts too. I realize instead of just posting every time we have an episode, I've got to post throughout the week, post things relevant to the topics we're discussing, follow other podcasters too. So it is a learning thing. I think from my previous experience with social media, which isn't a lot. I just let the followers come in. Clearly, that's not always the case. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still learning. It is a bit of a slow learn. I do have like friends that study media that give me advice on what to do. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I feel like I've got my dog's hair on my face.
That's all right.
Honey, you need to go. You need to go. Just go. Right.
See, all fun and games here on the student guide. You know, pick up the mic, we bring the best.
Oh my God, I was just there trying to get off for ages. So yeah, I'm just learning. I do take inspiration from others. And you know, like we do have our key colors and stuff like that. But like I said, I don't think there's like a right or wrong way at the very beginning. It's kind of figuring out what works for your podcast. You know, essentially you're right. It seems like today that everybody has a podcast. So when we first started, even till now, I'm not really fixated on the views or like the numbers it gets or any of that. I know that some people might say it's like the amount of numbers you get that like determines a success, but I really don't think it's that. I think it's like even that one person that would watch it or listen to it or follow you, the impact that can have on them might be way more than it could on a large number of people that just listen and then go and do nothing with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because literally you mentioned we spoke about that. Well, that was to do with entrepreneurship, but in our previous episode we said the same thing. Because I think, like what you were saying, that was like you said. I mean, yes, I'd use Instagram, and I had a previous sort of like passion project that I was doing, so I did sort of know like what you mentioned about like constantly getting content out there, how to approach people to sort of collaborate with. But I think for me, like you said with the podcast is. The other one was different because we would like host events. Well, before COVID, we would host events. And then when COVID sort of hit and we sort of took a pause, we were just like, okay, cool. Instead, what we'll do is we'll have like video series. We were just like messaging like people who created, who were sustainable fashion people or had a passion about sustainability. And we said, hey, look, we're doing a video series. Here's some questions, just answer the questions. I'll create the video, then we'll post it and then you can share it wherever you want. But I think for me, like, pick up the mic meant like learning about YouTube and learning how YouTube works and then what works and what doesn't. So I think I don't know if I said on the podcast, but like I said to people that YouTube tells you that like tags on your video aren't really that important. They're just there to like help if the title's different. And at first I was like, cool, YouTube wouldn't lie to me. That's telling me the truth. And then my brother, because he has some creative projects that he does, he was speaking to someone who does like social media stuff, and they were just like, oh no, like. No, tags are super important. You need to like put as much stuff in your tags that can sort of drive people to your stuff. Try and make it, if you include tags that are quite relevant to like what you're talking about, or even like generic ones, so ones that aren't specific to what your podcast is, but it's about a topic. You're just like, hey, that's really good. You should definitely have that. And I was like, didn't actually know that. Okay. And then, like you said, it's like learning about like Instagram and how to do that. And I think, yeah, like you said, whether it's like following. So that's one of the things I think helped me was following like other, like again, I'll sort of put the plug now and just say like we are hopefully by the time this is out gonna have it. Well, we've announced it because it's come out on the birthday celebration, but hopefully by the time the episode comes out, it will actually be up on the website somewhere. But yeah, we are doing podcast consultations for anyone who's looking to get into podcasting. So yeah, hopefully the link will explain more. But if not, we'll
amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it's just because, like we said, like I think when we started, that was like you said, we were concerned about like the numbers. We were sort of like the website we use let us keep for free, I had a plan of like a free plan that you can keep your episode there for 90 days. So we were like, cool, let's just see in the next 90 days how the episodes do. If they start to pop off and they do well, then maybe we'll sort of continue. If not, because yeah, to keep it on, you had to pay. And we were just like, yeah, while it's okay to like pay, it would be nice if like we could get funding and stuff like that. And we were just like, but the thing with funding is you need to have numbers and things like that. So yeah, I think that was like my biggest thing. And then yeah, I think it's like what you said. It's about in the previous episode I mentioned it. I've probably mentioned it in other things. One of the things that sort of stuck out for me from I think it was the Justice League 2017. I don't know if it was in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a massive comic book fan. So yeah, I went into that Justice League 2017 with high expectations, and some of those didn't deliver. But essentially, one key thing that came out of that film was Batman, the Flash's like worried about like who like how he's supposed to be a hero and things like that. And he asked Batman like, what does it mean to be a hero? All of this stuff. And Batman literally is just like, you just have to save one person. That's all it takes. You just to be a hero, you just have to save one person. And I think for me, that stuck with me because it was just like, whether it's to do with podcasting, whether it's to do with like, I don't know, my job, like whatever, all I have to do is just help one person. And I said that, I said that the key thing for me is that I just always assume like with whatever episode we're doing on, whether it's like something talking about Game of Thrones or we're talking about, we're playing like games or whatever, is that there's one person out there who is looking for my content. And whether that one person listens, like whether that person, listens to it 100 times and that's why I've got like a video gets 100 views, or whether that's, it's only got like 4 views that week. I think for me, that was it. And I was just like, the thing is, with the podcast, the content's there for them to get in. So even if the person, like, even if someone doesn't view it as soon as it comes out, then there's no point in me saying, I didn't do well, I'm going to delete it, because you never know. Someone, I don't know, like we did a revision episode for our first season, and then like we uploaded it to YouTube. And then like at the time we uploaded it, didn't get a lot of views, and then come exam season, like it sort of started to pop off because everyone was looking for like best ways to revise and things like that. Even like we did an episode with placements about like just talking about myself and someone else who was a student, still is a student, who went on placement. We were just talking about like our placement experience, things like that. And then it was one of the things that at the time it came out didn't really get a lot. And then I'm currently on placement. I'm currently at placement at the moment, and my deputy director was just like, "Oh, hey, like I saw you did a placement episode. I think it's really good. Do you mind if I share it around with like some people?" And I was like,
"That's amazing.
Yeah, go ahead." And then like it just popped off there. So I think that's my main thing with like anyone who's interested in podcasting. I mean, besides, again, feel free to get in touch for the consultation. We can organize a meeting and stuff. But I think the most important thing is just like you said, don't think about the numbers. Don't worry about like growing. I think the most important thing is starting, and then once you've started and you've realized this is something that actually I want to do a bit and like spend more time on, then go back to it. There's no stress. Yeah.
I do think that I remember when we first started, and I used to say this to Jay, consistency is key in terms of recording or posting, or just in general, consistency is key. One thing I realized as well, we used to do this thing where we'd announce at the end of an episode what we're going to do next. However, life does not always work like that. And sometimes things change, which is completely fine. So I've completely scrapped that because it allows more room for flexibility as well. So you just live and you learn really when it comes to this.
Yeah, no, definitely. Even like one thing we used to do, it was like especially for like when we started, pick up the mic was just a podcast. So the whole thing was called Pick Up the Mic, and we had different individual stuff. But one thing we did was we always were just like, welcome to the first, welcome to the second, welcome to the third. And then it got to the point where we had like in our second season, we had a guest speaker, and we were just like, okay, cool, you're the 5th person. And then basically, like you said, life happened. Every time like we tried to record, they weren't available. When they tried to it just got to the point where I was literally just like, okay, if we don't start like posting stuff, we're gonna sort of like bite ourselves in the foot and sort of be like too far behind, that if we sort of like wait, we're just gonna lose all this interest. So we were just like, okay, cool. We're gonna record ahead and then just see how it goes. And then I think at the end of that season, we were just like, okay, cool. We're no longer going to announce like this is episode 1 or this is episode. Well, I mean, we still do episode 1, but we only say like this is the first episode and this is the last episode, so people can know which one's the start of the season and what's the end of the season. And like we said, it means that when we're sort of like uploading stuff, there's no pressure to be like, oh gosh, we recorded our 5th episode, but we like, it didn't work. So now we're going to have to try and go ahead with another episode. And it just means that, like you said, it's just a lot more peaceful. It's relaxed. Like, I know originally, like before we were trying to do like a main series episode every week, every 2 weeks. And then like our additional stuff, like alongside that. But then we sort of got to a point where we were just like, actually, we like we didn't want to flood people with content, so we were just actually no, like let's just upload at least 1 or 2 episodes a week, and then, of different stuff. And then, just go with that, see how people like that. And that's worked so far. We sort of backtrack with our like audio version. So if there's like an old episode there that's sort of like an episode we only released on YouTube, we'll sort of go back and upload it. But yeah, I guess that's my one piece of advice.
It's finding what works for you, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I can see my laptop battery's low, so I'm going to quickly plug my laptop charger in. But while I do this, the next question is essentially, what are some of your favorite topics now it can be either topics you have discussed, T, or upcoming topics, but what are some of your favorite topics to talk about on Let's Talk About It?
I would say my most favorite one so far, I mean, we do only have about like 6 episodes, but I would say it would be the one on Black History Month, as well as the one on mental health, particularly men's mental health. Just because I think in terms of those topics, I'm really interested in like the whole social sector of it all. As well as like, I think we are planning, hopefully, to record an episode on sexual harassment. So, for example, like my dissertation was on sexual harassment within universities. So, and then another one I'm looking into now is knife crime, but within North London, young adults, young people, and like factors of mental health. So when I cover topics that I'm also interested in, I kind of look forward to it. I know that's a bit biased. But essentially all the topics that we do talk about, I am interested in them in one way or another. I just think it's because of, it's so weird. I think it's because it ties in with my values and my beliefs and what I think is essentially important. I think it's like those conversations that, need awareness, but are lacked in society, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, no, honestly, you shouldn't be upset if there's an episode on something that you like, you should definitely be excited about it. Yeah, no, definitely. It's the same with pick up the mic. If there's an episode on whether it's to do with like sustainability, whether it's to do with just like personal passions, entrepreneurship, things like that, like it's perfectly fine to enjoy those episodes more. But I think as well, like and it's probably the same for you, that one of the things that I do really like is that sort of like learning about different fields, or like learning about topics that I have like either little or no experience in. So, whether it's to do with we've spoken about like acting on the podcast before, we've spoken about sort of like the union and union elections and societies and living on campus and all this stuff. And for some of that stuff, like I've never done it. Like, for example, as I've mentioned, I've never lived on campus. So that sort of whole experience, I know nothing about. But sort of like hearing people talk about like their campus, like living on campus experience, or their placement experience. I mean, I did do a placement, but obviously everyone's placement is different. So it's still learning that. But yeah, it's all, that's what I always say with the, and I think that's kind of why we sort of went with the changing the main series from just calling it Pick Up the Mic to actually the student guide. Is it's like, each episode is almost like a chapter in a book. And it's just like opening to the next chapter and sort of learning about a new person and a new topic, but also like diving into something completely different. And it's just like, okay, cool. I don't know much about like psychology and the study of it, but this person that we've had on who studies psychology had a lot to say about it and gave like really useful tips. And yeah, I think that's...
Sorry, I completely agree with you, because like, even though there might be topics that I love to talk about or I have an interest in, what I find really interesting about podcasts is when you invite guests and you have guest speakers, and obviously they have different views to you and they have different opinions. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm completely right, you're wrong. It actually, I mean, like, people tune in to, I guess, hear something new and learn something new. And even though if I'm hosting it, I'm still learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like I said, even today, like I'm learning new things about Let's Talk About It. I'm learning new things about, like, I think as well, like even like a personal level, like you learn more about like as a guest, well, whether it's a guest or as a host or whoever, like you're learning more about someone else. And it's just that, like, we say in our bio, and like we say that the unique thing about the podcast is that, we've all got our own like backstories, journeys in life, experiences, and that like this the podcast is essentially a reflection of that. Like you said, you're speaking to people that maybe have a similar cultural background, maybe have a similar education experience, maybe not, and it's just about sort of like speaking about that, diving into that, and sort of like learning, like you said, like learning new things and just figuring out things. Yeah, I think that's what really makes podcasting really fun.
Is that interaction with each other, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're gonna go on to the next question, which I would say is probably the one of the most important questions. And I also realized, actually, before I go into that, I just realized I didn't actually write this down as a question, and I should have, because we've been speaking about podcasts, and I haven't even asked you, T, what is your favorite? Well, I'm the worst when it comes to like what is your one favorite thing. So I always do it in threes, but if you can do it in one, that's perfect. If you can do it in three. But what's your favorite or one of your favorite podcasts? Because I didn't ask you that.
Oh my God, I listen to quite a few, to be honest, and it always fluctuates and changes. I don't know if I'm a creature of habit, because I'll get into one for a period of time and then I'll move on. But one that I always go back to is Jay Shetty's podcast. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of his stuff's a bit controversial, I'd say, but I really like his episodes on like being, and I don't know, I think I've read parts of his book, I listened to his podcast, and I mean, he was a monk before, so some might say, and I do have friends who say, that his opinions and views are a bit extreme in terms of taking care of yourself, and they're not always realistic. But I like the guest speakers he has as well, and I would say he's probably one of my favorites to listen to. What about you?
Yeah, like I said, I it is tough because I got asked that once during an interview, and I was just like, oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to think about it. So for me, like what you said, it sort of always changes. There are some podcasts where I don't. So like, I guess one consistently that I like is it's called What Culture Gaming. It's by this company called What Culture that they do comic book stuff, they do wrestling, they do all this sort of stuff and talk about it. But I really like their gaming podcast because mainly I want to say that they're the inspiration behind like Pick Up the Mic, but they do. I think that I like that they have discussions around topics, and it's quite like they make jokes. It's quite lighthearted, and it's like fun on that aspect. I think another that I really like is Comedy Goldmines. That's what it is. And that's done by like Kevin Hart. But that I really like because it's just like so funny. And I think as well, like, it's just like, I guess, like having two comedians on, they're sort of like cracking jokes, like they're talking about the experience, but also it's quite insightful, and like there's a lot that can be learned from like each of the guest speakers he has on. Like his episode with Trevor Noah, to me, was probably one of my favorites to sort of, because, well, I'm a big Trevor Noah fan anyways. My dream is to have him on the podcast as well, to just have a sit down between a conversation between two Africans. Maybe that would be the title of the podcast. But
that's a good title.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. but yeah, no, I just love how like even like the stuff that Trevor Noah was talking about, his experience, and how like Kevin Hart sort of gets them to sort of like, I guess, open up and sort of speak more about their personal experience is really good.
But I think that's amazing. Like, it's quite a point that you made about the humor, because I think I tried to incorporate that in my podcast, not on purpose, because I'm actually not intentionally funny. It just comes out naturally. Or people say that my jokes are funny, I'm funny. But I think what it does, it kind of makes it, like you said, the episode's more lighthearted, and like it makes the guest speakers feel comfortable too. And it just adds some humor, which I think is important. Like, you know, especially when you discuss certain topics that could be serious and sensitive. I know that, the balance of showing respect to to what it's being discussed, but also like, I don't know, making it personal in a sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, you know, it's sort of like I went to this event that sort of like the Roundhouse, which is, if people don't know, it's like a music. They do music venues, but they also do like creative work for sort of people who, if you're sort of a young person and you're interested in going to the creative industry, we gave them a shout out in a previous episode. Definitely check them out. But like they had a conversation with ZZ Mills, and they were just talking about like her, like, I guess her experience and stuff like that, and like interviewing people and things like that. And I think that was one of the things that, like we said, like, they spoke about like some of the stuff that she's been through, like how she sort of got into fame. And it's like we said, like, it's not like with whether it's a podcast, whether it's like an interview or whatever, it's not about like making it like funny, but it's disrespectful or insulting, like whatever you're talking about. But it's like we said, it's being personal, because I guess there are some things that you'll just like look, not even like just like like personal, well, more personal stuff, but there's some things that you look back on that you would have done as like an young person or an individual, and you'll just be like, gosh, like I can't believe like I did that, or like what was generally like what was going through my head. Like I don't like, I mean, again, it's not like a serious things like compared to like some of the like stuff that can be discussed. But I know, like for me, like we had an episode, and we'll include it in one of the corners of YouTube. I never know which one it is, but we did an episode of like, just talking about like stuff like it was Never Have I Ever, and we were just like, okay, never have I ever become like viral before. And I was like, I wasn't really viral, but like at school we had this if anyone to secondary schools watching, they'll know what I'm talking about. But we had this talk about like driving safely and things like that, and sort of like that. They got into heavy stuff of like why it's important to like wear your seatbelt and not to like drink drive and be dangerous, and sort of like had someone on who had been injured and things like that. But they started off with like a bit of an icebreaker. So it was like a dance challenge. Now for me, like maybe one day, maybe next year's birthday, or maybe to celebrate 5 years, I'll release that video. But there's a video of me, because basically I tried to, they invited, I went up on stage, and then someone else did from another school, and we did like a dance competition, and I didn't know that guy could break dance. So here's me thinking like, I'm sick, I'm doing cool stuff, and then this guy just like breaks down. He's like popping and locking, like doing the rope, all this stuff. And I'm just like, it's funny because in the video you can see where like generally in my head, like all logic goes.
See the moment.
You just see it where like all logic just goes. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do something, because I can't just stand here or walk off stage.
No.
And yeah, it's like we said, like it's just lighthearted humor can sometimes just make the conversation, I guess, more not so heavy, not even like just heavy, but it can also like you said, like sort of ease tensions, because I feel like sometimes when we sort of have these discussions, people are just like, oh gosh, like, I can't do anything. I can't like, if I do, I think maybe it was said at the Roundhouse, maybe it was said on something else I heard, but like someone, I think even Trevor Noah was saying, is that sometimes people are like afraid to sometimes speak, because they're afraid that like, they're going to get cancelled, or people are going to be like, actually, they're going to start an argument. Oh, why did you sort of say that? That opinion's completely wrong. And, that's not the case. And I think like even like sort of bringing it back to podcasting, that's one of the things about podcasting, is just having those conversations, and just like not being like, you're right and you're wrong. Like I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong.
100%.
It's just like hearing different viewpoints and people's different experiences. And yeah, it's just like, you might not necessarily agree with everything that's being said, but you'll start to think about it and be like, actually, while I might not agree, I can get where this person's coming from, and I can see what they're saying. Yeah,
I think it's all about different perspectives, and like there's never too much you'll know. Does that make sense? So, oh my God, I realize I say that so often. Does that make sense? I probably say a lot during the podcast. But God, I'm gonna notice that when I'm recording. Yeah, my mind's gone completely blank.
No, honestly, like I think even my brother was joking about it on the podcast, because he was saying, I don't remember what he said. I said it say a lot, but I think he was saying there's something that I always say in podcast episodes, and I was just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe one day we'll do a drinking game. We'll do a live podcast recording, and like every time in an episode I say it, we can have a shot. But yeah, no, definitely I agree. I think it's all about learning. But yeah, there was one other podcast that I feel like I should probably mention, because it's one that I don't listen to often, but there are really interesting conversations on that. And that's How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. So it's a
Oh,
podcast. Yeah, it's really good. It's all about like so she brings on a different guest speaker for each episode, but it's all about talking about like three experiences where the guest speaker has sort of like experienced a failure. Now it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, they I don't know, like they applied for a competition, didn't get what they wanted, and then that's it. It can even be something like more personal. So like I know the episode that I sort of got into was she did an episode with Munya Chihuahua, who, yeah, if you don't know, definitely check him out. He does a lot of funny videos, a lot of funny sketches. But yeah, she was speaking to him about like his failures, and he was just like, oh well, one was like, oh gosh, I don't even remember, but it was just all funny stuff. Like one was to do with like his university experience. Another one was that he like he got rejected. Like he had this idea, he was like auditioned for this show or messaged, and like I think it was like some like broadcasting company if he could like work with them, and then they said no. So yeah, it is good because especially like when, like I said, like a comedian or funny person's there. I think Simu Lee was there, guy who plays Shang-Chi. He was there, and he was talking about like one of the things that was his failures was to do with his love life. But yeah, I think that I like because it's like not only are you hearing like I guess celebrities' failures, but also it's just like you know, I can relate to whether it's, you know, romantic troubles or whether it's you know, I don't know, like not getting like an opportunity that I was really hoping for or things like that. And then she always ends it with like, okay, so what happened next? Like, did something come out of it? Was there something that you learned? And usually like they say that they were. So whether it was they learned more about themselves or like they learned that like, you know, you shouldn't let failure sort of stop you. You never know like where you'll sort of come back. You know, I think with the Munya one, especially like one of the people that sort of at the companies that said like no, or that didn't give him the opportunity, he then like met years later and then like was doing a lot better. Like he was not only doing a lot better, but I think he was saying like if he had stuck with that company, he wouldn't have got the opportunity that he did by not. And whether it's like my manager, he always says that like, or my old manager, he always says like failure, like failure's never like if you don't get something or an opportunity, it means another better one's coming around. Or whether it's like my parents, it's particularly like my dad saying that you know, he's got a very humble approach about it, that he says that, you know, you should never essentially like trample people on your way up because you never know who you'll meet on your way down.
That's so true.
Yeah, so I think that like those podcasts are good because, like you said, the comedy ones are really good at like bringing the comedy element and finding ways to sort of like make jokes in a topic, whether it's a serious one or not. But I think like Elizabeth Day's one is quite important because I guess it sort of shows that even though like I am sort of like having a conversation with someone on the podcast myself, I'm also like there's someone who could relate to whatever we're sort of talking about, and I'm just like, oh yeah, you know, even though I'm just like there's just the two of us talking here today, there might be someone listening who's just like, actually I've always wanted to start a podcast and I, you know, want to know more about that, or I want to know, I've heard about Let's Talk About It, but I never really know like I don't know how I can listen and things like that. So yeah, I think that's my sort of like key thing, is I feel like there's a lot of like, yeah, those are my key podcasts. Yeah, sort of like
pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
I would also say I feel like I was influenced by Red Table Talk.
Okay. No, I can see it.
I
can see it.
I remember when they first came out with that, and I just thought, wow, I found it so interesting, and like the different speakers that they would have come on, and it would be like guest speakers that you would have no clue that they've experienced this in their life, you know? And like, I like the idea of like having like either a doctor or a psychologist come on and like really underpin what's going on through like within that topic, but like in someone's head kind of thing. And I don't know, I found it really interesting. And I think that also kind of influenced the podcast that I'm working on now, because I tried to get multiple people from different areas on at once, if that makes sense. But yeah, I do need to give a shout out to Red Table Talk, because I feel like they were the ones that kind of like influenced me the most, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I'm a great podcaster at all. We're not going to get an award for it, but I'm just saying.
No. You guys
I like their what's the word? I like their oh my God, is it strategy on like how they literally sit behind a red table that's like a circle and they're just open and they just show a lot of empathy and really listen, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree. And like I said, I can see it. Like, I think that was one of the things that I really liked about Let's Talk About It was you're not like I mean, I'm not yet shooting myself in the foot here and saying like, pick up the mic sucks. But like, I think one of the things that I like about yours is it's like we said, like you bring on like three or like you bring on more than one guest speaker and then you're like having these discussions. And then I think it's really nice is the sort of like bounce off because yes, sort of like even like today, like, you know, we sort of like, we had a question, but then we sort of like went in a different direction and things like that. And that's perfectly cool. But I think it's nice because even when like the more people that you have on the podcast, the more that sort of happens. And then you'll be like, like I know there are times that we said like, okay, cool. So like guess we could have been like, oh, cool. So how long do you want the episode to be? And we're just like, you know, like 30, 40, 45 minutes, that should be good. And then like we're here for like an hour and something. And we're just like, wow, like where did the time go? This conversation just like went just like in like a completely different direction. And we're just like, no, that's not like a bad thing. That's really good. And I think like you said about like Red Table Talk, that's the nice thing about having that. And I think as well is like what you said, like that sort of underpin, because I know sometimes, especially with social media, there's that like thing of like people saying, well, you know, I saw on TikTok that, you know, if you have this and this means that, you know, someone's got OCD or you know, they've got a mental health issue. And it's just like, no. And that's what I like whether it's like you know, people in the medical profession having like, you know, their own sort of like podcasts and sort of diving in, whenever it's like what you said, like with Red Table Talk, they bring on experts because I think as well, I think sort of like one last thing to say on this, I think as well is it's nice when because like I guess one podcast I probably should have plugged that I've like they recently started and I really like is it's called For the Record. It's by these and I've it won't be in it won't be on the student guide, but it'll be in another episode. But I've sort of spoke about it in a previous episode that we sort of they do like as a married couple, and they're sort of talking about like their experience on marriage. So they dive into like different things. So whether it's to do with like so they're both Christians, so whether it's to do with like you know, their journey with celibacy and sort of like that, whether it's to do with like getting married. They recently did one on like daddy issues because Haley, who's Haley Record, who's the wife of the couple, she her dad died when she was quite young, so she didn't really know him that well, and she sort of spoke about how that affected her. And I think for me, I really like their podcast because one, they always like say like, we're not marriage experts or like we're not, you know, marriage counselors or we're not registered, but like this is our experience and you can like take it and leave it where you want. And that's one thing. But I think the second thing that I really like about listening to their podcast is actually that they're both, I think that's one of the things that sometimes, especially when we sort of like what I was saying before about like getting cancelled, not necessarily like getting cancelled is a bad thing. Like, again, we sort of had like a question about that in our second series about like cancel culture, and I sort of gave my comments there. But I think for me, it's more to do with like the fact that like she's so like as a couple, they're sort of like, you know, if we feel like, you know, people need to hear this, we'll tell them. We won't necessarily feel like, you know, we're sort of conscious. So what I mean by that is like, she was saying, you know, I don't know, like she spoke about like, you know, some people go through like an emotional period in their life, they should definitely get therapy. Now there are some people on the internet that'd be like, no, that's not the case. Like, you don't need it. But there are some people that would agree. And I think she was saying that, you know, like there will always be like, you could, I think she made a joke about like, you could say like the sky's blue. And then like someone on the internet will argue it's not. You could say oranges are good for your health. Someone will say it's not. And I think she was saying it's not about like worrying always about like what others will say. But if you know, like, you're not like, you know, you're saying like you're talking from personal experience rather than talking from like, you know, I'm a medical expert and I know all about like mental health and looking after your well-being. It's just like, no, actually, I went through this and I like someone suffered through this and they had this, and they're just like, now this is my experience. If you are going through something similar, like this is what I would do. but just bear in mind, I'm not like a medical professional. This is my like full-time job. So yeah, I think that's one thing that it's a good podcast to plug. And they're quite new, so I definitely would recommend checking them out. But yeah, I think just that, like being able to sort of like talk about your personal experience and be like, whatever advice you're sort of giving to people, you like, especially if it's something that not only from like talking to friends that they've appreciated, but also like, if younger you knew this, you would be like, actually, this would have been great. I think that's one of the most important things that our podcast taught me. But yeah, I realize I have been rambling on for some time.
No, you haven't. We're having a good discussion.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I'm honestly enjoying it. I'm telling you, this is what I mean. This is why I love podcasting, because you get to learn more. You can have these discussions. You can figure stuff out. You can talk about things you're passionate about. Which also kind of leads to the next question, which is, T, you spoke about what Let's Talk About It is about. And I think one of the key things that sort of came out was the idea of like having these honest conversations, talking about the student experience. Now, one of the things that I guess we like, literally like what we sort of spoke about before we started recording, was as a podcast, we also agree that like having honest conversations about stuff is the best way for things to improve. So, for example, like we said here on the previous episodes, I will always shout off the rooftop of something that's useful, something that helps. If I tell you that it works, it's not because I'm getting paid to promote it. It's because
it works.
Yeah, because it works. If I could get paid to promote it as well, that would be amazing. But I don't. But yeah, I feel like it's just like, if like we were talking about placements. We had a previous episode where we had someone on, and they were talking about their placement experience. And he was like, it was awful. And I was like, that is perfectly fine. And they were just like, oh, I'm like, I don't know if I should go into detail. I was like, go into detail about it. If your experience was awful, tell us about it, because the only way it's going to change is if people know that, like, oh, actually, people went through this. But yeah, I guess that essentially the question is like, why is it important for both, not only students, but also staff members to have open and honest conversations about the student experience?
I feel like it's what you just said, though. I think, without having those conversations and like raising awareness, there won't be any change. And sometimes, I mean, like you said, we're no experts, but from my past experience, when I go through anything, I usually it's easy to feel like you're the only person that's going through this or understands this. So by raising awareness, listen to podcasts, seeing what support is around you, the services, different techniques, what to listen to, what to watch, what to do with your body, what to eat or such, it can help, right? So I don't know. I think, oh my God, I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, you're not.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
God. Sorry, can you remind me what the question is again, please? I feel like I was like going with it, and then I went a complete U-turn.
No. It was good. It was just like, why is it important to have open and honest conversations about the student experience?
Conversations. Right. Okay. Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's just how I see the world in a sense. I encourage people to have open, honest conversations. We're not just like their peers, but like, the adults around them, the younger generation, in professional settings too. I think, when you aren't completely honest and you hide things, you kind of disguise yourself in a sense. You give up this false reality, and like, how will other people know what's really going on? And like I said, also being open with each other, you kind of feel less alone. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I'm a huge advocate of just trying to be as honest as possible. I think life is easier that way. You're kind of, when you take things for face value and you present yourself as who you are. Easier said than done, though. 100%. Don't get me twisted. Oh my God, I was not like this like a few years ago. So don't worry. Growing up, no one could tell what was going on with me. I could be like pissed off and no one would know. But yeah, it's just, I think, and I really stand by this. I don't know if you've heard of her. Her name's Brene Brown.
No, I
She's an
haven't.
author. So she writes books, right? But I read this, that it's like, you know how like when you're going through hard times and you're just going on and people are like, oh, you're so strong, you're so resilient, you're so like, keep going. There's also like strength in being vulnerable.
Definitely.
And being yourself. And like, it's so hard to do that. Because when I started practicing that after reading her books, I was like, God, this is awful. It's like going to therapy, you know? But the more you do it, the easier it gets. You know, there's like a lot of things that we need to think about, like generational trauma, taboo subjects. Like, you know, these areas in society need to be highlighted and they need to be spoken about in order for there to be change. I'm talking about changing like people's perspectives, changing like policies, legal frameworks. Like overall, how do you expect society to improve when you don't raise questions and discuss like the gray areas? Does that make sense? I've gone and said it again.
No. Like I said, you're doing amazing. Like I definitely agree. You know, maybe even that's, you know, I'm sort of putting me on the spot here, but again, I'm not, just because I say it doesn't mean it's definitely happening. But even like that could be a future episode, maybe a possible collaboration. Because like you said, I feel like that is the case. Like there are things that you sort of feel like you can't really get into, or you know, you can't really talk about it. Oh, you don't want to like offend this person or that person, or like, you know, if I think even like what we were saying before about like talking about like the student experience, like I think that was one of the things that I was just like, okay, so if I'm going on the podcast and I'm bringing people on, and especially if they're like Brunel students, and they come on, you know, and they're talking bad about Brunel, I was just like, you know, especially I was just like, you know, whether I'm currently at placement on the university. So again, that was one of my concerns of, you know, if I bring someone on and they're sort of like, you know, bad mouthing, like I don't want to not like, if they're saying something and I feel like I agree with it, I don't want to be like, you know, no, this isn't the case, or like it's I disagree with that. And I think it's just like what you said, it's just being open and honest. And like whether it's
finding that balance as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, it's definitely not something that happens all the time. I think for me, I was probably, I want to say the complete opposite, but I was a bit opposite when I was younger. So I think for me, it was just like, I was just like, oh, cool, you know, someone's a friend. Like I would, you know, so I felt like someone's a close friend. I'd be like, actually, you know, I'm going through this, or actually, I feel like, you know, I wanted to tell you this is going on in my life, and this. And I think for me, it was just like, that's one of the things where I think, you know, being young, a young person, an old person, anyone could really learning at a young age is really useful, is like knowing who to trust and who to depend on. Because I think for me, it was like what I say was the complete opposite. It was like, I'd be like to someone, oh, you know, I'm going through this or this, or actually, you know, even if it was like simple things, like, oh, like I had a crush on this person or this or that. Like it was just like you tell certain people, and then it'd be like, boom, next day at school, like everyone sort of knows what's going on in your personal life. And you're just like, wow, come on. And I think, yeah, for me, I sort of like started to, you know, like what you're saying, like just be like, you know, like people would ask me like, what's going on, or you know, want to know more about what's going on in my personal life. I'd be like, it's good, like it's okay. You know, everything's all right. Can't complain, things like that. And yeah, that's not the case. You shouldn't be like closing things off, whether it's from family or close friends. And I think that's one of the key things. It's just like knowing who, and it's not like I said, it's not even to this day, like it's something that I still deal with. But it's about like knowing how to speak, like knowing who to tell. And I think one thing that from someone that we had on who sort of did psychology, she's an expert in her field. I should have just said she's a psychologist, but she was basically saying that like it's about like not like tests, because that sounds like you're sort of like testing your friendship, but she said you don't need to necessarily feel like, oh, just because I don't know, like you spend, I don't know, like lunch, or this person's like a really close friend, or like, you know, you like, she said it's just about like doing the little things first. So if, I don't know, you tell someone, I don't know, something that's going on in your life that isn't like, you know, super big, or isn't something that you're sort of concerned, like not necessarily you're concerned about others knowing, but if it's something small, then you can be like, okay, told this person this, you know, let's see what happens. Because they were just saying that it's just all about like building trust. And yeah, it's just like I said, you're not testing them, but you're just making sure of like you're not putting you're not giving information to someone that either A is going to use it against you, or B is going to like I don't know, sort of like the next thing you know, everyone, whether it's at your workplace or, you know, on your course or at your university.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it's really good to have those boundaries.
No, definitely. Yeah.
As long as you're not protecting yourself too much, because if you protect yourself too much, you could also be doing damage to yourself.
No, it's true. I think that, you know, we've sort of said it throughout the whole episode. It's always about that balance of knowing what to do and like who to talk to and things like that. But I think I think the key thing is that it's just like, I'm not saying like, well, not even like I'm saying, like, we're not saying at all like, you can't trust anyone, you know, the whole world's against you. Like, there's no one you can talk to. No. There are. And whether it's like you start going to therapy, whether you start using like apps like BetterHelp or like any sort of like apps that can help with mental health, mind, calm. We've spoken about those before.
Because, you know, it's not like you say, like, it's not one shoe that fits all. You know, it's easy for us to sit here and say, yeah, let's be open and vulnerable and let's talk. But we both know it's not that easy. Exactly. But we encourage it because it gets easier and like the positive impacts that follow. Yeah. And it's not always great. Sometimes it feels like piece of crap. But like, you know, I think as well, you know, the older you get, the more mature you become, you see the world differently, you understand things differently. And like in comparison to, I would say 18-year-old me who didn't want to talk about anything. Whereas now if someone's like, oh, how's your day? I'd be like, yeah, it's crap. Like, you know, and I think also it's like a cultural thing being British. It's like when someone's like, oh, how's your day? You say, good, thanks, fine, it's all right. Yeah. Like it's really short. I don't know if like you've been a part of those like well-being check-ins when you're at work that they've like implemented after COVID. Or like on your placement, like, you know, do they do that? Like, do you have well-being meetings even like in your lectures or?
So we not well, like with with our workplace. I would say like the one thing that I think different to, because I did one for my undergraduate and I'm doing one for my postgraduate, and I think one key difference from that is sort of like seeing it from like a not manager level, but like sort of like the higher ups, like the deputy directors. So like, for example, my deputy director and director at the moment, because the team is a lot smaller, like if I'm usually sort of in when my deputy director's in, and he'll sort of like regularly, like if he sees me and he's like, we're both not busy, he'll just be like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, how you finding work? Anything I can help you with? Like there's people in the team that do the same thing. But yeah, like what you were saying, in my undergrad placement, like it wasn't always like that. And like, yes, even if it was my like immediate manager or like the team that we were in, yes, that was the case. For like people higher up, it wasn't. And I feel like it's like what you said. It's just like having like without like, I'm not like coming at British culture, but I think even like that was one of the things that my parents were saying. They find really well, like they've been in the UK for like ages, but they were saying when they came, like that was one of the things that they find interesting. And even like at our church, like we've got people from different communities, and they were saying that's one of the things that they always find interesting about British culture. It's just like, you know, it's short, brief. How you doing? Day's good. Now, weather's all right, isn't it? Yeah. So I think even like comedians have done sketches on it.
Yeah, and like even people from other countries when they come here, like my friends and stuff, like when they say that like British people are rude or like we're depressing or like, you know, we're not friendly. But the thing is, the minute you speak to someone like on the street, you will get a response.
No,
like
definitely.
You don't get ignored here.
No, it's true.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I was saying about that is like when they started the well-beings, what I noticed is it's easy for people to say, yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine, you know. But I will be that one person at Wellbeing that will be like, you know, well, my nephew came over this weekend and he ruined my desk and I had to try not to kill him because, you know, he's my nephew and I love it. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean. Yeah. No, but to be honest, it's like I think kind of like people feel that when it's, you know, when you're asked like, how's your day or like everything okay, like people feel like they have to say like, yeah, you tick boxes and you just have to be like, yeah, I'm good. I think I probably won't be able to include a video of this for copyright reasons, but like Walker's had this really interesting, I think it was Walker's, they had a really interesting Christmas advert, Christmas just passed, so in 2022, and they were saying like in that advert, it was literally just sort of like this. So like this person came home for the holidays And like his family were just like, "Oh, how you doing?" And he's like, "I'm good, thanks." And like it was interesting because they had like a floating emoji that would walk around with him and would show like how he actually was feeling. Yeah, it was really interesting. So like family was just like, "Oh, no girlfriend this year," or like, "Oh, how's the job?" And he was like, "Oh, okay, they're all right." And then like the whole advert ends with him basically he goes like into the kitchen, he picks up a packet of Walkers. No, sorry, goes into the kitchen, he sees his friend, and he's just like, "Oh," or family member, and he's just like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he was just like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And he was like, "Come on, mate." And then offers him like a crisp, and he's just like, let's talk about it. And then like the advert ends with like, well, there's a voiceover, but essentially it was just saying like, let's check up on our family and friends this Christmas. Like the holidays can, sort of like you said, like be a tick box exercise of just like, how you doing? Yeah. How's work? How, like, no girlfriend or boyfriend, no ring, whatever, no marriage, yada yada. But yeah, it's just about like actually like doing these check-ins on people, especially if it's like people that you don't see often. Like you only see them at the family or gatherings, or even like within your friendship group. Like I know, sometimes like we said, life gets in the way, so you might not see friends all the time. But it's always about like, no man, like let's honestly talk, and just like chat about things. And yeah, I feel like, and it's not even just I guess one other thing I wanted to add is it's not even just like a timing thing. Of like who to trust, and again, we could probably do an episode on this, because I think like for me, I find it really interesting. This is probably a shame. Well, it's not probably a shame. It's a shame he's not here because, so Samuel, who's on the Pick Up the Mic team, he's to me he's like a really close friend. He's really good. Consider him like a brother. But the thing that I find super funny is I've only known him for maybe coming up. Well, this September would probably be like 3 years. And even like him joining the team, I only knew him for I think about a year, maybe 2 years at most before I asked him if he wanted to join the Pick Up the Mic team. And yeah, it was just like I think it's just like what we were saying. It's not necessarily to do with like, like I agree, friendships do develop over time, but sometimes it's just about like, you'll just click with someone, you just be like, this person, like they agree with like who, like my values, the things that I sort of cherish and sort of consider important in life. Like this person sort of, they're ticking the boxes. I get where they're coming from. And I can see a friendship sort of blooming from this. So yeah, I think it's also that. It's just like, don't feel like you have to sort of like, again, like we said, like you're testing them on like, a month into the friendship, I'm going to ask them this, tell them this thing and see what they do with it. I'll give it a week. If by a week's time I find out that someone's found out my secret, then I know I can't trust them. It's not like that. Sometimes it will just be like you'll click with someone and things will be really nice with them. And then one other thing that I think is because it's now sort of like spun into like a mental health episode, which
sorry, I'm so sorry.
I honestly, like I said, I love the podcast or where the conversations go. But yeah, I think one thing that I do that I definitely would recommend to people. Now, so I'm Christian, so basically it's about journaling. So I won't say I do it every evening because I'm not gonna lie. There are sometimes
I journal too.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. Like, so for me, like I try and I think it depends on like how the person works. So originally, I didn't used to journal. It was literally just someone who actually was on the podcast before. So Sabrina, she I'd met her like maybe once or twice, and then for Christmas that year, she gave me a journal for the whole year, and it was just like, oh,
that's so nice of her.
Yeah, and it was just like, like especially because like I'd never really spoken to her that much before, but she was just like, oh no, like you do like I was on placement again at the moment. She was just at that time, and she was just like, oh, you do a lot of amazing work, like just remember to like take it easy. This will help. So I did the journal that she had, and I was like, oh wow, this is really good. And I think I completed it, and then I was just like, cool, I'm gonna buy another one, and then I did. Now this journal, I don't like, I'm not saying I hate it. It was a good journal, but I think the thing with me was that at the start of it, it had like a lot of reading about like explaining the journal, how it works and all this stuff. And I agree, that is important. Yeah. So it's good to like set the tone. But again, I think, because I even like for that year, when I got it, I was just like, cool, I'll do the reading and then I'll sort of like start journaling. And then when I started journaling, I was like, cool, I'll buy it for my family for the following Christmas and they would do it. but yeah, eventually it just got to a point where like days passed and then weeks passed and then months passed and then I didn't do it anymore. But yeah, what I've now done instead, so yeah, why I mentioned that I was Christian was, so instead what I'll do, like my aim is every day, every evening, sorry, but again, like I said, sometimes life gets in the way, sometimes you're super tired. But I just write a letter to God. So I talk about my, like, you know, thanking for what happened during the day and then my prayers for like the following day and things like that. Now I'm not saying like, if
that's
like,
my view.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't know. I can't really say there was an exact thing that sort of made me do like journal like that instead. But yeah, I took like my sister. I sort of introduced my sister to it, and I think for me, it's just like it's nice to sort of like whether you're journaling, like you're writing a letter to yourself, you're writing a letter to like you know, it's just for religious reasons, and you're writing it to God or anyone along those aspects, or like whoever you're writing it to. I think it's nice to like, I guess, sometimes express how you truly feel. Because yeah, I think with me, like that was one of the things that, from like I was saying before about like trust and all of that stuff. I think for me, I was just like, I just got to a point where I was just like, cool. Like I just shut down. You know, we were supposed to do it for Valentine's Day, but maybe we'll just do it as like a fun episode on the side. But like one of the things that we like, I know relationship wise, like that was the same thing as well. I just got to a point where I was just like, you know, I'd be telling people that I like them, and then things would like, things just got complicated, and I was like, you know, cool. I'll just like shut down. I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone how I feel. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm just going to, you know, be content, see where life takes me, things like that. And yeah, I think for me, it's just like, not only like journaling, but like also talking to friends about it, like speaking to even Samuel about it. Like it just not only put in perspective, like, I guess, like, you know, that's not like, not everyone's not like that, you know.
Yeah.
You can't sort of like base your past interactions with different people on your future interactions with people.
You also, deprive yourself.
Yeah, you're sort of like shutting off a part of yourself. And I think for me, that, like, I don't know, it was just like afterwards, I was like, well, actually, no, like I don't need to. I just need to sort of like, I think like you said, it's about balance. So I think for me, I was just like, okay, cool. So now I'm not gonna, so like now I wouldn't say like I'm never gonna like tell anyone how I feel. I think for me, it's more of like, okay, I'll just see how things go. I don't want to be, you know, like whether it's well, guys and girls do it, but you know, like someone sees, oh, someone's been like really nice to me, we've like spoken for ages, that means that they clearly must like me. And it's like, no, the person's just like, they're just a friendly person. Like, so I think for me, it was just that. It was just like, actually, no, instead, I'm just gonna, you know, just like see, not in the same sense of seeing how things go as I did before, but just like, you know, if I feel like there's a connection, if I feel like there's something that could be explored, like I will see where it goes. But yeah, I think it's that. But yeah, I think, yeah, my whole sort of going around this in circles with that was just basically like, just, think about journaling. It's like, whoever you're writing to the letter to, like, whether it's yourself, like I said, or God,
or no one even.
Yeah. Like it's more to do with like, you like just whatever you're really feeling, like just putting it down on paper. And I think one thing,
and making sense of it too.
Exactly. No, definitely. And I think one sort of like, I know like from, so like on the episodes on the podcast I mentioned before, like for the record, they did this. So like Hayley wrote a letter to her dad, who had already, like, he was already dead. Obviously he didn't get the letter, but her therapist said that she should write a letter to just like say how she felt towards him. Even like, I'm not saying like you need to, you know, this is like what's that film called? I think it's called for all the boys. To all the boys I loved before. It's not like that where, you know, you're gonna get the letter like posted out and stuff. But yeah, no, it was literally just
more for yourself.
Yeah. Because even like that was something that I think probably just before the pandemic, but then I started to do a bit more during the pandemic, was just like writing letters to like people. And like, I mean,
that was the thing.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't like, I wasn't writing from a point of, oh, like, you know, I'm never going to see them again type thing.
Yeah.
But it was more, I think, especially for like, you know, whether it was like people that I'd had disagreements with, and like, I sort of just like things ended badly, whether it's friendships or like relationship stuff and other things. I think for me, it really helped me to heal and like truly get over, not like get over in like that sense, but like
let go of it in a
sense.
Let go of the negativity.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just like I don't know, like I said, like sometimes I look back on it and you're just like, and I think that's one of the things that my dad says is he's just like, sometimes if you don't let something go, like you'll just be like, I don't know, you'll just be stuck on it. You'll be fixated on it. And then the person, like, even if it's like an argument, like the other person, to them, they might have said it and been like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with what I did. I'm good. And then you'll be there like, oh gosh, I'm so annoyed with this person. This person did this to me. I hate them. And then it
starts impacting you more than them.
Exactly.
Carry a heavier weight.
Exactly. And it's just, you just look, I don't know, like even now, like I look back and I'm just like, all these times, like, I don't know, I was like worried or annoyed or like, this person upset me. And I'm just like, no, but generally when I think about it, I'm like,
how exhausting.
Yeah, you're just like, how much time did you like waste? Like, just like, even like, not even just like, you know, just like actually like, you know, whether you actually confronted the person or whatever, but like, even just like them, like all that time mentally, you just thought like, you're thinking about it and like, I'm so annoyed. And it's just like, I think that's what's gotten to like, that's what my new approach is, or what I've been doing since is I'm just like, yes, if I get into an argument or someone really upsets me, I'll get upset, like, cool. But then like, my thing is like, cool, I will leave it. And like, one thing I definitely think that people should do, and something that I definitely have, like, it's definitely helped me, is just like, never go to bed angry. Like, don't like.
Oh my god, that's so much easier said than done.
Honestly, like I'm not saying it's perfect. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect. You know, like every night I'm just like, you know, everything's like perfect. But no, I think, yeah, and I think it's just like, that's one of the things where I think like journaling helps, because especially like for me, it's the last thing I do. So my phone's off, my, like, you know, everything's off. I'm in sleep mode. I'm lying in bed and I'm literally just journaling, and then I go straight to sleep. And for me, it's just like, you're like taking everything that you've like had to deal with the day, whether good or bad, and you're just like putting it somewhere, and you're just like, cool, I'm letting the day.
You're
like,
offloading.
Yeah, you're offloading. You're just like, cool, I'm gonna leave this here, and I'm gonna go and enjoy like the rest of my day. I'm gonna like, you know, not day. I mean, like, you're gonna enjoy your sleep. And I feel like for me,
it's interesting you say that, because when I started journaling, I never did it every day. I did it when I would feel. Actually, no, I think there was a phase where I did it every day. Could have been. Yeah, I think there was. I don't read back at them, but I would do it before bed like you did, and I would feel better. But I realized, you know, sometimes I used to journal to like let out any negativity. And then once, when I was feeling as if there wasn't as much negativity in my life for me to write about, I just wouldn't. So whereas now, like, I'll journal when I feel overwhelmed with my emotions or I've got a lot going on. And it's like you said, you put it pen to paper. You don't have to do it every day. You can do it every day, but you do feel different. I don't know what it is. It's not like anyone's listening to you, but it's like you've had that chance to express, write it out. Sometimes writing it makes sense what you're feeling when you understand it better. It gives a different perspective. But it is, yeah, I think it is key to do it before bed, because you kind of feel a sense of relief. At the same time, I have never read a single one that I've written, because God knows what they say. But you don't have to. It doesn't have to make sense. Like, when you journal, you don't have to like worry if it makes sense grammatically or if your spelling's right, because essentially it's just for you, you know?
Yeah. No, definitely. And even like you said, like, I know that was one of the things that sort of took me time. I mean, I don't really do it as often as I probably should, but like you said, like, I think even
I should say my battery is on 20%.
Oh no, that's all right. Yeah, I guess one thing that I wanted to just say to this was about like you said, like going back and reading on it. I think for me, it was like one of the things that like I didn't always do, but it is, I think, whether you've had like a good day or a bad day, it's something that you can go back to and like look at. So if you sort of go back and you've had a bad day, it can show you that actually not every day is a bad day. There are good days. And I guess even from like a good day, like if you've had a good day, it can also show you that. I'm not saying like, you got to worry that the next bad day is coming, but it also can show you that, like, you know, even if you start to, when you're having a good day, it's like, actually, today wasn't a great day. It was an okay day and things like that. It is sort of like a good thing to sort of like go back to do. And I think, like you said, I think that's why, because I used to have like a mood tracker on my phone where it was like similar thing of like, did you feel great? Did you feel good? Bad?
Too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah. And I think especially like when, like what you were saying, like, I think especially during lockdown, I really didn't like it because I would feel like, especially when, because obviously, like, we weren't able to go out as, like, we couldn't, well, so I was about to say, couldn't go out as much. We couldn't go out, period.
Couldn't go out. Oh.
Exactly. And I was just like, it just sometimes felt like, actually, no, like, life is so repetitive at the moment. And I was just like, oh, cool. And it just got to the point, like, even when, like, typing it, I was like, you know what, let me just, like, I basically did what I did yesterday. Let me just copy and paste what I did yesterday. And I can see, like, mood-wise, did I feel good? Did I feel great? I might have done like I might have watched a new TV show. Might have done like spoken to a friend. But it was, I think that's where like mood trackers can sometimes come, like not necessarily always be great. But I think that's why like journaling is good, because then you'll be like, actually, you know what? I don't know, like the tube came on time and that was amazing. And I don't know, like I sort of like all my transport lined up. As soon as I got off the bus, there was a train. As soon as I got off the train, the bus was there. And I feel like for me, it's like, that's why I like journaling is there's no like mood tracker. You're not seeing like, oh, I've actually had like 5 good days and 10 bad days and 14 okay days. And it's just like, actually, no, like I've had like I don't need to track my mood. I'm literally just saying how I felt at the end of the day.
There's something very human about it.
Yeah, I think that's why it's nice.